I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Global Book Network, we're sharing a story of unimaginable loss, unwavering courage, and enduring love. The name of the book, Beyond Broken: Surviving and Thriving Beyond the Death of Your Child. It's written by a terrific author. Her name is Marie Sumnicht. After the sudden and mysterious death of her daughter Julia during spring break, Marie was thrust into a devastating search for truth, justice, and healing. Her powerful memoir not only honors her daughter's life, but also offers hope, guidance, and advocacy for other families navigating the unthinkable. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her on TV today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing and powerful book. The links are below this interview. Marie, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. This is obviously born out of heartache. It must have been a very, very tough task to write this book and relive these memories. But the memory of your daughter, in very good ways, remains with you every day because I know the love endures. Um, Tell us what happened with your daughter. I know she was 21 years old. She was in Florida. She suddenly died, and it was kind of a mystery, right?
Yes, exactly. So I tend to start this story with, I just gone to bed. It was Sunday night, March 14th, and all of a sudden I bolted upright. It's in my book, and I heard this loud pounding at the door. And because of the loud pounding, it sort of, unnerved me. And I said to my husband, "You got to come down with me. Who's knocking at our door at this hour?" And so we went down there and we saw two men in uniform, Green Bay policemen. And the first thing they just said was, "Is Julia your daughter?" And we were like, "Yes." I mean, we knew she was down in Florida, but then they said, "Would you mind if we come in and sit down?" And so, in the what seemed like eternal 10 seconds to walk from the door to the couch, of course, a lot of things went through my mind, but never did death cross my mind. I thought, well, she got in some trouble, something, right? And then so the first words out of their mouth was, "We found your daughter's body." And you mentioned, an unimaginable loss, and I've learned that you can't imagine. And the reason you can't imagine is because it's not your child. Like I've learned that, when you lose a child, you literally do lose like a piece of yourself. And so it's my loss. And so I went into basically a meltdown where I actually went into shock, and just kind of froze. I didn't know how to process it. And so what happened that night was, one of the detectives who found her body called that night. And honestly, I don't remember much of what he said. But I remember that he did not say, "We're going to do everything we can to find out what happened," or whatever. So he did not say that. I immediately just trusted, basically trusted the system that they were going to find out what happened, whatever. So I thought in the following days that she possibly died of alcohol poisoning because, kids, although she was not a drinker, maybe a social drinker like a lot of kids, definitely not a drug user. And so I thought, well, maybe she just got in the wrong place, the wrong time, and had, too many drinks. And maybe she died of alcohol poisoning. But they did not tell me the night that they found her body that they do an alcohol test right away. I didn't find out till a year later that she had a zero blood alcohol, 0%. So she actually had no alcohol in her system. So for a whole year, of course, I struggled with, blaming myself, letting her go down there and thinking it was, alcohol, whatever. I just had no idea. They did call me about 6 months later and said, "We found in our toxicology reports that finally came back," which, 6 months later, um, that there was a lethal dose of a drug called GHB. And of course, I had no idea what that was. Um, and that's really all he told me. It still wasn't like, "We're working on this case. We're going to find out what happened." It was just, and looking back, I just feel like I was literally in shock for like a year and a half. Like I feel like I just didn't have my wits about me, my brains, and I look back and there's so many things I wish I had done or said. But again, I was just trusting the system and in my grief. And so it was about a year later that nothing was happening. And my husband's brothers called us one day and said, we feel like you know what happened to your daughter and that you even might know some of the people that were with her. And we did. We were trying to piece things together because the police wasn't talking, they weren't talking to us. So we ended up hiring a local investigator. He really wasn't a homicide investigator, but he was good and he was something. And he did a lot of work. Um, that's when we found out that she had actually a 0% blood alcohol. We found out exactly that she was actually only a couple blocks from where she was given the drug. Um, and well, yeah, and again that night, so I don't know if you want me to get into this, but part of my book is sharing, my book was written ultimately to help people through loss because obviously I understood the impact of what it did, to me and my family. And I also discovered what could help them and what helped me in my journey through loss. Give me a life with more purpose and healing. And so, but the other part of my story, and one of the motivations for my book was not only to help, bereaved parents and really anyone going through adversity or loss, um, is just the experience I had with the justice system. It was just beyond me. Like, that was another devastation in a sense, um, of how they failed me. And I realized, my eyes were opened and I thought, well, if they failed me, think of all the people that they have failed, all the victims, right? And so in the back of my book, I say I want to be a voice for the voiceless. This is not about Julia anymore. She's gone. But I wanted to do something for the next person that was found in a similar situation and, do it for them, advocate for them. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's unbelievable. I mean, you do feel like you're victimized twice when the police basically ignore your case.
right,
Sometimes police advocate for a case and don't stop digging, and there are unrelenting. But other times they make a snap judgment and look no further, the drug overdose or whatever it is, and look no further. And it's
right,
cruel to the family members who are left behind because you want answers. This
right.
was not behavior that was characteristic of your child.
Well, right. I'd like to kind of qualify that too. I'm glad you brought that up. Is I am someone who I never make general statements. I would never say because someone did something that I would blame a whole group of people. Okay, I'm a teacher, right? There's a lot of bad teachers out there. But of course but I feel like I'm a great teacher. So you can't, slash the whole education system because I target these people because I know exactly what they said to me, and what they did to me. Um, yeah, I mean, so I think so highly and I'm so respectful and grateful for our law enforcement, for our military. Like I'm indebted to them. And so those are my true feelings about that. And so yeah, so that's why I'm glad you brought that up because I always want
Agree
people
with
to know
you.
that.
There are good and bad in every group of people. There are good
Exactly.
journalists, bad journalists, whatever the case might be. But unfortunately, with cops, they sometimes make snap judgments and then they don't move from that judgment or that
Right.
opinion, and it winds up hurting. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how parents can move on, but I think people are fascinated with Julia's case. Were people eventually brought to justice because of the investigation that you basically took on yourself by hiring a private investigator?
No, there's really still no closure. After about 5 years, I just sort of gave it up, and just kind of trusted God with it. And I mean, I'm a Christian and I believe there will be ultimate judgment. So like, I know their payment is coming. And I do know that I'll see my daughter again. So
Feeling
that's,
is that somebody put this drug in her drink to take advantage of her or something.
yeah, there's no question that happened. So I'll try to condense this. So
Sure.
long story short, so there were two men and they were eventually able to subpoena one of them. And he actually told the DA that he saw this guy give her the drug. Okay, so I'm a big researcher. I actually did a ton of research on GHB laws. There's actually three federal laws just on GHB. Like Julia's case should have been a classic case, with GHB. They should have been charged just like this. It's like if you kill someone, it's minimum 20 years. But that never happened. So they subpoenaed this guy. And even though he said, because that's all you need a witness to say, I saw this person hand someone a drug. That's literally all you need. That's enough. Well, they chose that the whole time they continued to, believe it or not, blame Julia. They blamed Julia. Well, they said, I'm sorry, but they talked to me like I was sort of an idiot or like I was a 10-year-old or whatever. Like, well, we don't know that Julia didn't choose to ingest it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll never forget that phone call with the DA. I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking to someone who's in law. Anyway, so basically, after that, they wrote a final case report in 2019. And honestly, that caused me just as much I felt like I was emotionally abused by this case report because the whole case report is full of lies and omissions and it's awful. They interviewed 5 people that knew my daughter, and I read all the interviews and I sent the interviews to those 5 people, and all 5 of them were like, you got to be kidding. Why would I say that? I didn't say that. Anyway, again, long story short, that case report is now in her file. And like I have and then one of the things I found out, which is disappointing and with our legal system is, so I tried to get people from Wisconsin to help me, from New York, where one of the perpetrators is living right now, um, to help me. But unfortunately, they said only her case has to be investigated and solved in the jurisdiction where they found her body. So here I am, left with this malfeasant, and malfeasant is a perfect word. It was a malfeasant police department. They're still malfeasant today. I've kept in touch. It's like there's an article like every other month or whatever. It's just really sad to me that that's ongoing. But so yeah, so
Horrible. It's
I do have,
horrible.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. No, well, so my one of my cousins was in acting for a while, and she ended up giving my book to a producer, and he at some point would like to create a movie of my story, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, just again to get the story out there and to help other people.
Yeah, like the Go Ask Alice book from when you and I were growing up that everybody had to
Yeah.
read. Obviously, it's a different story because Julia was a victim of this date rape drug. And like I said, when cops make a snap judgment, not only do they hold to it at times, they will do whatever they have to do to back up that opinion. And it's awful, it's devastating, it's wrong, and it's unjust.
Hmm.
Also, if you think about celebrities' children or grandchildren who have died under similar circumstances, such as Robert De Niro's granddaughter, they
Right.
arrested the drug dealer in that case. Whoever supplied the drugs,
Right.
whether his granddaughter was soliciting them or not,
It
you
didn't
know,
matter.
it didn't matter.
Right.
They gave the weapon. That was the
Yep.
murder weapon, that drug. So
Exactly.
hopefully, at one point, justice is served.
Thank
Hopefully, at
you.
one point, maybe a prosecutor picks it up or a cold case investigator, because it's not right. And like you said, it's so painful and insulting, to the memory of your daughter and to your own intelligence. Let me ask you this, because I want to talk a
Mhm.
little bit about the
Sure.
benefit to readers who are bereaved.
Sure.
Obviously, you never get over the loss of your daughter. Obviously, you think about her every day. What do you do to get by? What do you do to make it a little bit better, a little bit more manageable?
Yeah, so one of the things I did, after I lost my daughters, I did a ton of reading. I poured myself into books, kind of searching in a way, right? You kind of start from ground zero when something like that happens with your faith, with just everything. And I remember one of the books I read a handful of books of people who had loss. And one of the things she said is just really true, based on what you just said. She said, you never get over it, but you learn to get through it, but you can get through it. And that was really well said. Um, so for me, I would say it was a good 5 years of really the same old, where, um, I don't know if you don't mind, I wrote a quote down, from my book. Um, it said that the thoughts I told myself daily kept me in a cycle of defeat and bad feelings. I discovered that I was guarding my wrong beliefs because I felt I deserved my pain. I learned that I needed to challenge and confront my wrong assumptions and be willing to change my thinking to find the peace that I longed for. And I read you that quote because um, most, I would say almost all parents, at least most parents, when they lose their child, the first thing they do is blame themselves because somehow, because you're their parent, you're their protector, right? You're their safeguard. Somehow, so what did I do? Like I shouldn't have let her go down there. I should have done this. I should have, should have, would have, could have, right?
Right, right.
And so we start telling ourselves things that are just not true. Um, and so I learned, and I talk about this in my book, especially in the last part of my book, that you need to realize that the truth is you always had the best intentions for your child. You always loved your child.
Right. Yeah.
So
Even if you make a mistake, I'm not saying you made a mistake, but even if you made
exactly,
a
even if you
mistake,
did,
your best intention is always for that child. As a parent, you love your child so much, you'd lay down your life for your child. I know a million times
exactly,
you'd rather that be you than her. Uh,
exactly.
and it's a terrible tragedy. It's a terrible nightmare. Um, God bless you for sharing your story and trying to help others get through this awful pain. And like you said, you just you don't get over it, you get through it and you learn to live with it as best you can. And whatever can bring you comfort and peace. And I know in your case, it's faith.
Hmm.
That's very, very comforting that you'll be with her one day, that
Hmm.
there is ultimate justice in this world of ours, and you'll leave it in God's hands.
Hmm.
Um, the name of the book is Beyond Broken: Surviving and Thriving Beyond the Death of Your Child. It is a raw, honest, and ultimately inspiring roadmap for families navigating profound loss. Marie, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time, your candor, and your insight. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now.